Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Justina with JustynaTHandMade. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through the Lily crossbody bag pattern. This is one of my first, actually I think that was my second pattern that I created, and I think it's still really cute. And because I wanted to sew up another one of those bags for my trip, I decided to record the video so you have a visual support to the pattern. The pattern itself comes with the full written instructions. All the steps are described and illustrated with photos. This video, it's just a quick support for the pattern. If you don't want to be reading through, you are a visual learner and you want to just watch the video to see how this bag comes together. The bag has a front zipper pocket. It's a pretty large pocket, so you can fit a cell phone here easily or a wallet. On the back, you have two slip pockets with the magnetic snaps. They go all the way to the bottom, so if you prefer to carry your phone on the back of your bag to just have a nice quick access, you can do that. On the top we have a recessed zipper closure, and inside it has three slip pockets. The pattern itself doesn't come with the instructions for the trim. I'm just gonna walk you through how to create the trim to the slip pockets in the video. If you are already a subscriber to my channel and you are coming back to watch another video of mine, thank you so much for supporting my channel. If this is the first time you came across my channel, please make sure to subscribe. If you at any point enjoyed this video and you find this video helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you don't have a copy of this pattern just yet, you can get a copy from my Etsy store. The link to the pattern is posted in the description box below. I will be offering this pattern at a discount for 1 week from the premiere of this video. If you like this bag, please make sure to grab the pattern during the discount period. The discount codes will be available in my Facebook group. You can join the Facebook group, and the post with the code will be pinned to the featured posts while the discount code is active. And now, if you want to see me creating this Lily crossbody bag, please keep watching. To start our project, we're gonna prep all our pattern pieces. The full cut list is included in the pattern, so I'm gonna just run through the pieces quickly. So here, as you can see, I have my main zipper and my recessed zipper panels. Here is my inside lining, so I have two main lining panels, my pocket, and I'm gonna add a little trim on the top of my slip pocket inside. This is something that it's not in the pattern, but if you like to do that, you can follow my instructions in the video. Then we have the front of the bag, so you have the lining of the pocket and the zipper, and you're gonna have a printable pattern piece for that. You're gonna have the apple panel, which comes with a printable panel as well, and the main bottom front panel, and it comes with a printable pattern as well. I just want to clarify something. So in the pattern, if you are using vinyl like I'm using today, you can just cut out this opening and follow the instructions in the pattern to attach your pocket. In this video, I'm gonna show you another method of attaching a zipper pocket into this purse, but you can choose. There is two methods shown in the pattern itself, and that's gonna be another one. So that's our front of the bag, and here's our back of the bag. So you're gonna have the upper panel, the bottom panel, and the lining for the slip pockets. Also, this bag pattern includes a tutorial on how to attach a little tassel to the zipper pull of the front pocket. This is optional. I'm not going to be showing you how to do it in this video. I'm just gonna put a link to another video that shows the technique I used to create this little tassel attached to my zipper pull. Also, I'm gonna be using webbing tape for my D-ring tabs, and for my back strap I'm gonna be using rivets. Here is another zipper pull for my top zipper. I have my sliding adjuster, D-rings, swivel clasps, 2 magnetic snaps. Also, obviously, we will need some sewing supplies. I'm going to be using the polyester Gutermann Mera 70 thread, both in my bobbin and my top threads. I'm going to be also using some double-sided tape to help me through the process, some clips and pins as needed. Okay, so now we can put away all the items that we don't need for our first step. And I'm gonna start with my front of the bag. And to do so, I'm gonna need my lower panel and my lining and my zipper. What you want to do, you want to mark the side measurements of the pocket with the pen. I'm using this special pen for vinyl. You can get one from Lauren at mormino.com. And also I want to mark a measurement along this cut, but not exactly along the cut line, because I'm going to be using a different method to attach the zipper. So I'm going to mark a line 1/4 of an inch above the cut zipper opening. Now that I have my marks done, I'm gonna take my zipper tape, and as you can see, I don't have my zipper pull on. That's how I prefer to work. But if you don't feel comfortable putting your zipper pull on after your zipper is sewn into your project, just put your zipper pull on right now. Now I'm gonna use a double-sided tape. I like to use this 1/8 of an inch tape because it's very sticky and I don't like to sew through it. So if I use a really small double-sided tape, then I have space in my seam allowance not to sew through it. Now I want to make sure that I have the center of the panel marked. I'm using a pin to mark my middle parts. You don't have to worry about puncturing the vinyl right here because we're gonna trim that part of the vinyl, so you can use a pin. Also, we want to make sure we have the center of the zipper. And now we're gonna place the zipper, making sure the middle marks are aligning along the drawn line. Now we're gonna take another piece of double-sided tape, place it along the edge of the zipper tape, take our pattern piece, making sure it's the right way around. So you want to make sure that the right side of the fabrics are together and you are aligning the correct angle. Now affix the lining panel along the edge of the zipper. Take your pattern piece and mark the opening. When you have your panel prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along the edge of the zipper and the lining with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 stitch length. make sure to backstitch well on the beginning and on the end of the seam. Now that our seam is completed, we're gonna cut the main panel so we can flip the pocket lining in a correct position. So you want to cut the fabric about an inch inside of the first stitch up to the first stitch. Don't cut any thread. Repeat that on the other side. And now that you have your fabric cut, you can trim that part if that's something that you don't want on the back of your pocket. And now you can flip your pocket over. Make sure all the fabric is behind your project. And make sure to finger press it well. And now is the time when we want to attach our zipper pull. I like the zipper pull to go towards the top, so that's how I'm gonna attach it, but it's up to you. So I'm gonna push my zipper pull somewhere in the middle of the zipper. And now I'm gonna fold my panel and pull it up to the top of the zipper, line it with the zipper tape. Do the same thing on the other side. So I want to make sure that everything is aligned. And I'm folding the panel right where the first stitch is. So you want to make sure that you're folding it right where the seam ends or starts. You're gonna now take the project to the machine, making sure that the lining is folded behind the zipper tape. You're gonna sew from the top up to the first stitch. Don't sew outside or inside, because this way you're not gonna have a nice clean look. You want to make sure you are sewing right where the fold is and where the last stitch is, or where the first stitch of the zipper is. So now take it to the machine and sew those two triangles of the vinyl down, making sure your lining is nice and folded behind the zipper. Now that you have those sides sewn, make sure that your lining is nice and flat on the back, and make sure that your seam is nicely finger pressed. If you feel comfortable, you can take it to the ironing board and give it a little bit of a press, but just make sure you're not going to be touching your vinyl with the your right side of the vinyl with the iron. I have the seams nicely pressed, and now I'm going to take it back to the machine and I'm going to top stitch along the zipper opening with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch. Now that my zipper opening is top stitched, I'm gonna work on closing my lining. So you want to place your project wrong side up, bring the other edge of the lining to the top, and you're gonna take it to the machine. And first you're gonna close the sides of your pocket lining. You're gonna sew with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 stitch length. And when you have your sides closed, then you're gonna base the top of your lining onto the top edge of your unit. Now the pocket is completed on the back and it's based on the top. We're gonna move on to attaching our top panel. So you're gonna take the top panel, align it along the top edge. Just make sure that the little corner sticks out here and the little corner of the top panel sticks out on the right side, and they meet at the seam line, and now secure that with clips. So you want to make sure that both panels are right sides together, the angle edges are clipped together, and when you have that done, take it to the machine and sew along that edge. Now that your top panel is sewn in, you're gonna open it and finger press it. You want to make sure all the seam allowances are behind the top panel. Make sure the seam is nicely pressed, and you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that your panel is top stitched, you can now trim this little triangle here. And at this point, our front panel is prepped. Now it's also a good time to attach your back tag if that's something you want to do. So you can attach in any place you desire. You can attach it on the bottom panel or on the top panel. Just keep in mind that there's gonna be a seam allowance on top, and that we're gonna have box corners, so don't go too low or don't go too high towards the top of the back. I attached my back tag. I want everybody to know that this is a handmade item. So now my front panel is prepped. I'm gonna move on to work on the back of the bag. For this part, you're gonna need the upper panel, the bottom panel, and the lining. First, we're gonna take our bottom panel and the lining, and we're gonna place the lining right sides together to the main panel and attach the shorter edge to the top edge of our bottom outer panel. When you have that done, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. When you have the lining sewed in, you're gonna flip the lining in the right position, and you're gonna fold the main bottom panel of the back of the bag by 3/4 of an inch. You can secure that with clips, and if you're using a material that can be ironed, you can take it to the ironing board and just iron the fold. And when you have that prepped, you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the folded edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that you have the top edge top stitched, you're gonna flip the project over, take your upper panel of the back of the bag and align it with the other open short edge of the lining and clip together. Take it to the machine and sew along this edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the other part of the lining is attached to our upper panel, you can press it with an iron like I did, because I'm using waterproof canvas and a woven material. If you're using vinyl, you can finger press the lining fabric and you can top stitch it to make sure that the lining gonna lie nice and flat when your bag is in use. Now we're gonna create the pocket. So you want to bring the folded edge of the bottom vinyl over the seam. The measurement, how far to pull the main panel over the line of the lining, will be provided in the pattern. But to make sure that, you know, if maybe your seam allowances were a little off and we want to make sure we have the correct size of the back panel, you can compare it to the front panel because we want both panels to be the same size. When you're happy with the layout, you can now secure that with clips. And when that's done, we're gonna work on dividing our packet. If you want to have just one large packet on the back, then you don't have to divide it. This is totally customizable. I like two smaller slip packets on the back, so I'm gonna walk you through how to divide them. So you want to find a midpoint of your panel. And make a mark with erasable marker. When you have that marked, you're gonna take the panel to the machine and you're gonna sew along the mark line. You can make just a one seam line, or you can go up with one line just off to the mark, come back one stitch length of 3.5 millimeters and come back down. This way you're gonna have two stitch lines. If you wanna secure that with rivet, just make sure you're not gonna run the seam all the way up to the top. Leave about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch unsewn on the top, so you have a place to attach our rivet without cutting our stitches. So take it to the machine and divide the packets with the method of your choice. Now that I have my packet divided, I'm gonna work on installing my magnetic snaps. So I wanna place one snap on each packet. To do that, I'm gonna measure 2.5 inches from the center to mark the placement of my magnetic snap. My vinyl doesn't really show the marks when I put my pin in, but if you are using a plain color vinyl, that might be visible. So just make sure that you are using some kind of marking tool that's not gonna damage your fabric. Now that the male parts of the snaps are installed, you're gonna use that placement to find the perfect placement for your female parts of the snaps. And install the female parts of the snaps. Now that the magnetic snaps are installed, you're gonna clip the sides of the packets. And when you have your project prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna base along the side of your panel. Our sides are now based. Our back of the back outer and the front outer are prepped. Now we're gonna work on the recessed zipper panels. So you're gonna take your longer zipper, your two panels cut out of the outer fabric and two panels cut out of the lining fabric. And first we're gonna prep our zipper. So you wanna square off one end of the zipper. You can do that and take it to the machine on base it, or you can use a lighter to melt the side of the zipper tape to affix it together. When that's done, we're gonna place one of the outer panels right sides together. You want to place your zipper teeth side down, leaving a space for our seam allowance on this side. You're gonna clip that in place. Take one of the lining panels and place it on top. Make sure that the lining and the outer panels are right sides together. Now fold the outer fabric by about 3/8 of an inch and secure that with a clip. Flip over your project and repeat that with the lining. And when you have your panel prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along the front side of the zipper panel and along the long edge. Make sure to backstitch well on the beginning and on the end of the seam. After you have the zipper panel sewn, you're gonna trim the little corner by the folded end of the zipper. So that's our zipper tail. You're gonna cut the corner where our side seam and the top seam creates the 90-degree angle. And you're gonna turn the panel right side out. You can take it to the ironing board and iron the panel flat. And when you have your panel turn out right side out nicely, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along those 3 edges with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Make sure your back of the panel, those two, because they are not sewn together, the lining and the outer fabric, that they are not gonna shift. So make sure that's secured. Pull the lining and make sure that the zipper is nicely exposed. Now that my one side of the zipper recess panel of the recess zipper panel is ready, I'm gonna repeat the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna place my zipper along the edge of the panel. I want to make sure that both of my panels will end in the same place. And now that I have it clipped, I'm gonna take it to the machine and I'm gonna sew along this edge and the zipper edge, making sure I'm getting close to the beginning of my folded zipper and following the same seam allowance like I did on the initial recessed zipper panel. Now my second panel is sewn in. I'm gonna trim my little corner. Turn the panel right side out. Compare your panels, make sure that they are equal on both sides. If anything needs to be adjusted, do it right now before you top stitch the second panel. But if you are happy with the way the second recess panel is looking, you can take it to the machine and top stitch along those 3 sides and baste, so both lining and outer fabrics are together. Now that my recessed zipper panels are done, I'm gonna attach them to the front and the back panel of the bag. So I'm gonna take my front, and here you have to pay attention to how you want your bag to open. I want the zipper to be on the left side when it's pulled close. So this is the position I'm gonna attach the recessed zipper to my front panel first. So you're gonna find the midpoint of the front panel, and the midpoint of the recessed zipper panel, not the zipper itself. And you're gonna place both right sides together and clip. Now you're gonna take your back outer panel, you're gonna split your zipper panels, and again you're gonna find the midpoint on both, and you want to make sure that on the back panel your zipper is the other way around. So now the tail is on the left side. And just to make sure you have it right, you can compare those two panels. So take your front panel and your back panel, and this is the layout you are after. You want to make sure that when you have it flat, when your back is closed, you're gonna have those two zipper fronts and zipper ends together. And now when you have those two prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna baste those recessed zipper panels onto our outer panels. When your recessed zipper panels are based to your front and to the back of your outers, now we're gonna place both right sides together. And because I'm using pretty stiff vinyl for my bag, I want to be able to top stitch my seam allowance on the bottom of the bag. So I'm gonna first sew just the bottom of my bag. If this is something you don't want to do, you can clip the sides of the bag as well. Just make sure that both panels are right side up and that your little tassel stays out of the way of the seam. But if you want to top stitch your seam, just start with the bottom seam first. So clip both panels along the bottom edge and take it to the machine and sew along the bottom edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the bottom is sewn, you're gonna open the seam allowance, butterfly it, so each seam allowance lies behind the corresponding panel, and you're gonna take it to the machine and top stitch along the seam on both sides with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. This way the seam allowance will be lying nice and flat on the bottom of our bag when the bag is in use. Now my bottom seam is top stitched. I can now place my panels right sides together, and again I'm gonna pop my little tassel inside of the pocket and align the tops and clip both sides. After the sides are clipped, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along those two sides with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you are not gonna be sewing the zipper tails or the zipper, the recessed zipper panels. Now that we have our sides sewn together, and just a note, because my vinyl is quite stiff, I opted in to sew a second line of stitches just outside of the initial stitch line, so towards the outside edge. That will ensure that my stitches are not gonna show when the bag is being used. So now the last thing to do to prep our outer is to box our corners. So take a ruler and measure 1¼ squares on both bottom corners of the bag. Just a note, because we folded the seam allowance on the bottom, we're gonna be measuring from the bottom edge, and on the side we're gonna be measuring from the initial seam line. I have my corners marked, and just a note that this is customizable, so if you want a slimmer purse, you can make those corners smaller, so you're just gonna mark a smaller squares. If you want the purse deeper and more shallow, you can increase the size of the box corners. Now that the corners are cut, I'm gonna open them and clip the raw edges together. You want to make sure that the seam line on the bottom aligns with the seam line on the side. So align that first and clip. Do the same thing on the other side. When you have the corners prepped like this, take it to the machine and sew along those two edges with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now our box corners are sewn, and I also sewn two seam lines just next to each other, just to give it a little more strength. And now you can trim the seam allowances by about a half. And you can now turn the project right side out. Now you can take a look at your bag, make sure everything looks nice and up to your satisfaction. So now I can move on to work on my lining. So we're gonna take all our lining pieces, and like I said, I'm doing a little addition. I want to put this vinyl trim on my inside slip pocket. So the first thing I want to do is to prep my slip pocket. Since I'm going to be using the trim to add the trim on the top of my slip pocket, I'm not going to be sewing the pocket together, right sides together. I'm just going to take it to the machine and baste those two unsewn sides together, so they won't shift while I'm attaching my little trim. You can baste those two sides with 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now that I have my pocket based, I'm gonna attach the trim. So I want to use some double-sided tape to help me with it. This time I'm using 1/4 of an inch double-sided tape. I'm gonna place the double-sided tape in the middle of my trim. And place the packet just above halfway of the trim piece. And now I'm gonna fold the other edge over and secure that with clips. Now that you have the panel prep like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. My trim is now sewn into the top of my packet. Now I'm gonna take one of my lining panels, place the packet on top of one of the lining panels. Make sure you have the lining panel the right way up, so you want to make sure the measurements, you're paying attention to the measurements, and place it 2 3/4 of an inch above the bottom edge of your panel. When you have the packet placement done, now pin the packet to the lining panel. And take it to the machine and baste the sides and top stitch the bottom of the packet onto the lining panel. So you're gonna be basting the sides and top stitching the bottom of the panel with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the packet is basted to your lining panel, you can divide the packet. You can divide it in 2 larger packets. You can really customize the packet. I'm just gonna create 3 packets. I'm just gonna divide it by 3. When I have my packet dividers marked, I'm gonna take it back to the machine and I'm gonna top stitch. I'm gonna top stitch to create the 3 separate packets. You can top stitch just a single line. Just make sure you're gonna back stitch well on the beginning and on the end. I'm gonna do a double line, so I'm gonna be going just outside, just on the right side of my marked line. I'm gonna go up, come back 1 stitch line, and then come back down to create my double line. And I'm gonna repeat that on my both line dividers. Now my packet dividers are created. I can now move on to finishing up my lining. So I'm gonna take the second lining panel and place both of them right sides together. I'm gonna clip them around the sides and the bottom. And now that I have it clipped, I'm gonna mark an opening in the bottom of my lining for my turning hole. Just make sure that your top of the packet is towards the top and you're not gonna be treating this edge as a bottom. And now that you are confident you have the correct bottom, just mark an opening with the pins. And when you have your panel prep like this, take it to the machine and sew along the side and the bottom up to the opening. Back stitch well. Start here with back stitching and go back up the side. Start with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you can increase the seam allowance slightly while you're going to the bottom up to 1/2 inch, and continue the 1/2 inch seam allowance on the bottom. Now that the lining sides and the bottom is sewn and we have our turning opening left unsewn, we're gonna box our corners. So we're gonna take our ruler and measuring from the seam line, we're gonna measure 1 1/4 inches on both corners. Now we're gonna cut them out. Open the corners and clip together. You want to make sure you are nesting the seam allowances against each other. Now repeat that on the other side. Make sure you are folding the bottom seam allowance in the same direction. And when you have your corners prepped like this, take it to the machine and sew along those two edges with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the corners are boxed, I also trim my seam allowances by half. I'm gonna put that aside. We're gonna do the last prep thing for our outer before we can put those two together. So now we want to make sure we have our D-ring tabs attached. In the pattern I do not use D-ring tabs, but here I decided to do a D-ring tabs with a webbing tape. So I'm gonna take 6 inches of webbing tape, cut it in half, so I have 3-inch. So I have 2 3-inch pieces. I'm gonna melt the ends of the cut edge with the lighter. I'm gonna take my 2 D-rings and thread them onto my webbing. And now attach each tab on each side of my bag. So you want to open the seam and attach the tab, making sure it overlaps the edge of the bag by about 1/2 inch. Make sure it's centered on the seam line and attach it with clips. And when you have both prepped like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna baste them on the outer panel with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the D-ring tabs are basted to my outer panel, I'm gonna take my lining panel and I'm gonna keep it wrong side out, and I'm gonna place my outer panel that it's right side out inside of it, and I want my slip pockets to be on the back, so that's how I'm gonna place it. I want to make sure that my zipper tails are inside and not gonna be caught in the top seam. I'm gonna start clipping my lining to my outer panel all around. When I have the top edges of my lining and my outer clipped together all around, I'm gonna take it to the machine and I'm gonna sew all around with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the top is sewn, we're gonna turn the project right side out and just keep those extra long tabs inside. We just want to make sure that there's a lot of fabric left, so the polyester webbing won't come undone when you are using your bag. So now you're just gonna reach inside of your opening and just pull the lining over your outer. You can take it to the ironing board and you can iron the top edge. In the pattern, the top stitching, especially if you're using a fabric that can be pressed, it's optional. But if you want to top stitch your bag, you can press the top seam all around and take it back to the machine and top stitch around your top of the bag. You can top stitch with the panels outside, or if you prefer, you can top stitch with the panels tucked in. Just pay attention to what your machine can handle, because that's gonna be pretty bulky. I'm gonna iron my top seam and I'm gonna top stitch with the panels in the up position, so I'm not gonna be top stitching through my panels. Now my back is top stitch. I also pressed my recessed zipper panels inside of the bag, so they're folding inside of my bag. I'm gonna work on finishing up the lining, so let's pull the lining out. Tack on the opening, making sure the raw edges are folding inside. Clip along the fold. And take it back to the machine and top stitch along the opening with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to close the lining. The lining is now closed, so I'm gonna put it back inside of my bag. And now we're gonna work on finishing up our zipper. So first you want to put the zipper pull on. Make sure it's zipping up nice and straight on the front. So when you're happy with the placement of your zipper pull, now we're gonna work on our zipper tail. In the pattern, I'm showing you how to create your own zipper tail end. In this video, I'm just gonna use the metal zipper end. So you can trim the zipper end shorter or just leave it long like this. I think I'm gonna trim it a little bit. Making sure I have my zipper pull on. I'm gonna now insert the zipper end. So you're gonna take your zipper end, you're gonna fold the zipper tape. You can add some glue inside if you like. I usually don't do it and I didn't have any problems so far. Push the zipper in as far as it will go, and then you're gonna secure the end with the screw. When you have your zipper end on, you can just pop it in inside of your bag, and now your recessed zipper sits nice inside. The last thing to do is to create our back strap. So take your webbing tape, cut to size for the back strap. Take the swivel hook and the sliding adjuster and some rivets. First, we're gonna attach our sliding adjuster. So you're gonna place it over the middle bar and secure that with clip. I overlap by about 1.5 inches just to have space to attach my rivets. Mark the rivets placement. I'm marking 1/4 of an inch from the top edge and 1/4 of an inch from the side edge. I'm just eyeballing it. Now install your rivets. Now, making sure that my webbing is the wrong side out, I'm just gonna go through it, making sure it's not gonna get twisted. I'm gonna put my swivel clasp hook side down, still making sure that everything is straight and not twisted. I'm gonna put the end of the tape through the sliding adjuster. This way I have a nice clean side on the right side of my back strap. And now I'm gonna attach the other swivel hook to the other end of my back. So I want to make sure that I have it right side up. Run through the tape. Put the swivel hook side up this time, and since this side's gonna be visible, I'm gonna double fold it. So I'm gonna fold it by about 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. Pull this up, secure with the clip, mark my rivet placements again. If you want to, you can do it from the right side, so you're gonna make sure that they are looking nice and equal from the right side. And install your rivets. Your back strap is ready, so now we can just clip it onto our back. And our project is done. Your project is now completed. The Lily crossbody bag is done. It features a front zipper pocket that can easily fit any cell phone. On the back, you have 2 slip pockets with a magnetic snap closure. The inside is secure with a recessed zipper closure. And you have 3 slip pockets inside. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're gonna give the bag a try. Grab a copy of the pattern from my Etsy store, the link is in the description box below, and definitely share your creations with me on my social media. The Facebook group link and the Instagram link is in the description box below. Till the next time.